Almighty God, to whom all hearts are open, all desires known, from whom no secrets are hid. Cleanse the thoughts of our hearts by the inspiration of your Holy Spirit, that we may perfectly love you and worthily magnify your holy name. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Well, getting involved in bodybuilding was in some ways kind of a lark, but also an interest of mine through the years. I had lifted a little bit on and off since college, but not anything on a regular basis until I came to my second parish in Elmore, Minnesota, in southern Minnesota. And in 1984, there was 3 teachers that came to our school system. And as a pastor in town, I would always meet the new teachers. One of the teachers that came to town was a ex-Marine. He had gone to Upper Iowa University on the GI Bill, and he came to our school, the Elmore High School, as the science teacher and also a wrestling coach. And I met him the very first week of school, and he was a bodybuilder as well. And that very week I started lifting at his home, and then in time we joined a gym that a new gym opened up in Buffalo Center, Iowa, right over the border from us, probably about 10 miles away. And at that gym, 5 of the fellows went to bodybuilding shows, like Greg. Brent, the owner, Greg, the fellow that I met, became sort of my mentor. Brent was also my trainer, and there was a man, Dwayne, who would win the Teenage Mr. Minnesota contest, and 2 other fellows from the Blue Earth, Minnesota area. And that's where I got started, lifting regularly, and we had a great time at the gym in Buffalo Center. Then later on, Greg became the manager of a gym in Algona, Iowa, and he started a bodybuilding show there. And I know Greg would have been my inspiration for being a promoter as well. He was a competitor and a promoter. And I started getting very serious about lifting, wanting to be in a show. I didn't think I was ready by any means. So from 84 to 90, I just kept making some progress in weight training and bodybuilding and tighten up my diet. And then on my 40th birthday, in April 7th, 1990, I went to Excelsior, Minnesota, a suburb of the Twin Cities, and entered a natural bodybuilding show. Since that time, I've been in 14 bodybuilding shows. My last show was 2 years ago, a show in New Jersey. I'm now in what's called the Grandmasters division, the over 50 or over 60 division. And I have now promoted 20 bodybuilding shows. This past year, here in 2013, I promoted 4 shows, and I'm now the National Gym Association chairperson for Pennsylvania. Well, some might ask, why in the world would you be in a bodybuilding show? I think there's a goal setting that goes on in this sport. Everybody needs goals in life. There's a lot of folks in my generation that are trying to beat the clock. And actually the over 40, over 50, what we call the Masters and the Grandmasters division, in my natural shows is the largest number of competitors. I've had up to 18, 19 in my Philly show in the Masters division. And so I think, yes, among the baby boomers like myself, we like to set goals, and this is one sport where you can showcase what you have done with your body. And of course you're going to live longer. You're going to be able to see your grandchildren, maybe even your great-grandchildren. I really think you can stave off a lot of health problems by doing natural bodybuilding. Eating right, exercising. There's a lot in preventative health care that comes out of this. Well, I'm a strong proponent of natural bodybuilding. I put that always in the title of my shows. Mr. Natural Philadelphia, my main show, Mr. Sioux Empire, natural. Mr. World's Gym, natural. Overcome health. Strong proponent that natural bodybuilding is the way to go. And yes, it's different from the non-natural movement. In the non-natural movement, people take enhancing drugs, yet they don't realize what they're doing for their heart, their liver, their blood pressure. And many of the fellows that win non-natural shows, a couple years later, you wouldn't even know that they were a bodybuilder. Bodybuilding, I believe, is a lifestyle. And if you have the three components together working, that is aerobics, weight training, and diet. If you have them going, you're going to do really well in this area of sport. Maybe even use the word of art. It's really an art and a sport. The people that are very serious for it, what they do on stage, they really become like living statues, these men and women that take it to the max. I believe that you should exercise also body, mind, and spirit every day. And so, as a clergyman, I've known many clergymen that died way too young of heart attacks, of strokes, of conditions that if they had only paid attention to their body. I was at a pastor's conference in Rochester, Minnesota one year, and Warren always likes to work out even when he's away, and so I found out where the local Gold's Gym was in Rochester. The area that we stayed was another part of the campus, and so there's a high hill. And so I remember pastors my age, younger, most of the fellows, they couldn't make the hill without being out of breath. And there was another very young pastor, he was probably in his first call, and we had gone to the gym together. And we looked at the pastors going up and down the hill, huffing and puffing, and way overweight. And we said, never us. When I was in Conshohocken, I belonged to a gym, a really cool gym in Norristown. And there was a Catholic priest there whose name was Father Gerald Chapman. But his nickname was Father Flex. He was in fabulous shape. He had great abs. He never was in a bodybuilding show that I know of, but well, he could have been. At that time, I was heading towards a bodybuilding show and also promoting one of my first shows. And they gave me the nickname of the Pumping Pastor. And so I've used that ever since. In fact, when I had an article at a publication called Steel Jungle, it says, Pumping Pastor becomes promoter. And so I use that on my website, and many times even when I'm using a byline about my show, come to the show that's promoted by the Pumping Pastor. One of the competitors in the 2011 Mr. Natural Philadelphia show was a first-time competitor by the name of Tim Caroli. He is a master chef. He's even been on TV in the greater Philadelphia area. He was a chef for a five-star, wonderful restaurant in the Philadelphia area, and then he got a promotion. He became the chef at Hahnemann Hospital, a large teaching hospital in downtown Philadelphia. And then they started acquiring other hospitals, and now he's the overall chef, dietitian for 3 hospitals. Well, he was, as he said, on his way to Heart Attack City. He was overweight, he was a type A person, he chain smoked, he drank too much, he barked orders all day long. And at Hahnemann Hospital, at his very place of work, in the basement of the hospital was a custodian by the name of Vince Rabuto. He is one of my judges. He's a pro-natural bodybuilder. And somebody told him that he ought to talk to Tim about getting in shape. So he started going to Body World, where Vince Rabuto is one of the trainers. And he did so well that as it came towards the spring, he decided to go to the max and enter my show. He came in 7th out of 8th in his division, but when I interviewed him about a week later at the cafeteria of Hahnemann Hospital after my show, he said, Warren, what you are doing is a lifesaver for people like me. I would have never made it, perhaps, to my daughter's graduation hadn't it been for this show. And now he has the bodybuilding lifestyle, and he goes to 2 gyms every day. One, he runs to and uses the aerobics at this one gym, and then he goes to Body World to do his serious workout later on before he heads home. Well, when I was living in Austin, Minnesota, they had a community theater called the Somerset Theater. I was there only 2 years, but the second year I was there, I auditioned for the role in The King and I was going to a local gym, TJ's gym, and I was getting certainly more buffed. I auditioned and got the lead for The King and I. And so I did 11 performances in the summer. We had a really grand production. We had an orchestra. We did fabulous costumes, even costumes that were made there. And one of the issues of being the king is I wore a costume that I was bare-chested toward the end of the show. And we had a parade also, Spam Days, and the King of Siam has a whole lot of children that are part of the production. They all dressed up in their costume. I was in my costumes. My workout partner of the time, he was on the float. He wasn't in the production, but we dressed him up in one of the costumes, and he was also bare-chested, and he was in really a lot better shape than I was. Well, I had been in a lot of productions in high school, musicals and also plays, 3-act plays. When I was in college, I had been in homecoming musicals. I've been in a lot of speech contests as well. And ironically, in many of my parishes, I have been involved in community theater. In my current parish, we have had a players group that has done 3 movies and 7 plays over a 15-year period. Even before I came to this town, they started doing plays and movies. I live in the town called Hegins, Pennsylvania, in the Pennsylvania coal country. The Freedom's Lutheran Players have a movie entitled It Happened in Hegins. There's a farce that's called Kiefer's Rumor Mill about gossip that goes on in the small town. Our 3 most recent productions have been Blood Soup, about a very kicking type of movie about NAFTA, about how NAFTA made a difference in small communities where a lot of our jobs went overseas. It's set in a Halloween setting. Another one was The Duchess of Hegins. My next door neighbor across the street from me is a 93-year-old woman who has 8 children, and she has been in all of our productions, and she played a character in The Duchess of Hegins as a fictitious English woman that came to our town, and nobody understood why in the world she rented one of our mansions in town. And what happened in the story was that she actually broke out of a nursing home. And then our most recent one is Waiting for George Jones, and that's set in the fictitious Hegins nursing home. And George Jones, the octogenarian country western singer who was living at that time, he has since passed away, he comes to our area to give a concert at one of our country and western stages on the Highway 78. And the nursing home people are all waiting for him to come. And the premise is that he never does show up. And so the true life story behind it is people in nursing homes wait for people for visitors. George Jones never came. Are you going to be like him? Never show up to visit your loved one in the nursing home? Yes, ironically, I've had about a 30, almost 40-year interest in pageants. Production of pageants that I've been involved in has also bode me well for being a producer of bodybuilding shows. I had 4 beautiful sisters, no brothers. They were involved in pageants, homecoming queen, snow queen, 4-H queen, college queen. You know, they were involved, and I went to many of their contests. Some they won and some not. And then we had a local 4th of July celebration in my town, Inwood, and the winner went to Miss Sioux Empire. That was the Queen of the Farm show in the community of Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And then I started going to state pageants of the Miss America pageant. And when I came to Austin, Minnesota, I volunteered to be on the state pageant committee of the Miss Minnesota pageant that was headquartered in Austin, Minnesota. The producer of that show was a member of my congregation, a professional photographer of the pageant that was held every June in Austin at Riverside Arena was members of our congregation. So I worked with that for 2 years. Then when I went to Green Bay, Wisconsin, I revived the Miss Green Bay Scholarship Pageant. It had been held for 17 years, and I spent a year finding the last winner, who was a 17-year-old, a young woman when she won Miss Green Bay. And 17 years later, she owned, with her husband, one of the largest buildings in Green Bay. And great story just even about her, Vicki. And then former Miss Wisconsin became our production producer. So Vicki and Phyllis and I cooked up the idea of having a Miss Green Bay scholarship pageant right before the 4th of July, and our winner then reigned over the America Fest celebration in Green Bay. And that pageant has been held ever since now. In fact, 2 young women have gone to the Miss America pageant as Miss Wisconsin. One even became second runner-up a few years back, a physician, Dr. Tina Sauerhammer. Okay, then when I came here to the Philadelphia area, since I've been working with the Miss Wisconsin program for 10 years, then I offered my services to the Miss Philadelphia pageant. And now I've been on the board of the Miss Philadelphia pageant that's held every March in Philadelphia. I usually have Miss Philadelphia come to my show, hand out trophies. This year, Francesca, our current winner, she came in May and handed out trophies. In South Dakota, I use Miss South Dakota, the current Miss South Dakota that's crowned in Hot Springs, South Dakota, a few weeks before my show in July in Sioux Falls. The current winner, Tessa D. She's very interested in fitness. That's her platform, as they call it. Then I've always attended the Miss America pageant. First when it was held in Atlantic City, then we moved to Las Vegas for 6 years. This year, I went also to Atlantic City, and I cheered on Miss Pennsylvania and Miss South Dakota. Our Miss Pennsylvania, Allison Rossellini, had been first runner-up to Miss Philadelphia 2 years ago, and then she won another title and became Miss Pennsylvania out in Pittsburgh in June. And so I knew both of them very well. And I've actually even worked as a volunteer in Atlantic City and Las Vegas in the security area on the pageant. At the present time, I'm the NGA promoter for Pennsylvania. And this year, 2013, I've now promoted 4 shows. I started in 2000 with the Mr. Natural Philadelphia show. I had 17 bodybuilders, had about 75 out in the auditorium. Now I'm in the 13th year of that show, and I have 80 or more competitors every year that compete for Mr. and Ms. Natural Philadelphia. It's a Pro-Am show, Pro Qualifier, and also I have Pro Bodybuilders in Masters and Open. Probably next year I'm adding a Pro Division cash awards for figure competitors. I also started this year a show called Mr. Anthracite Natural. It was actually a revived show. 30 years ago, there had been a show called Mr. Anthracite here in the coal region. Very popular show. The last show had been held in late 70s, early 80s at the then new Fairlane Ball Village in Pottsville. So I worked for about a year finding a venue. I ended up going to the Sovereign Majestic Theater, a revived movie house in downtown Pottsville, a reverse. And several people from my local gym and several bodybuilders here from the coal region entered the show. I had a really fun show in April, the last of April this year. And I hope to have it every year. This is the poster for the one coming up in 2014 that I've just completed the poster and will be soon on my website. We had 7 of the current bodybuilders in the show, or those who plan to be in the 2014 show, do a photo shoot with a fellow from Hazleton. Then after that show will be my 14th show in Philadelphia at Plymouth White Marsh High School, and it'll be a pro and an amateur show. I always have it the first Saturday in May. at Plymouth Whitebush High School. And then my Swempire show will be held in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. It will be the 3rd annual Swempire Natural Show. And that's the only show out in South Dakota, natural or non-natural as far as I know. And then my 4th show is World's Gym Philly Natural. And that one I sort of co-promote with the owner of World's Gym in Northeast Philadelphia. It's only a 24-hour gym in Northeast Philadelphia called Bobby Boyle's World's Gym. And I do it in a gymnasium. I set up a stage, and it is a show that's become very popular as one of the latter ones of the season. And the people that are in my Natural Philly show, they're grandfathered into that show. They don't have to usually have any more fees to be in that show. And about 7 or 8 guys usually, and women, go into that show that were also in the main show. Jesus is confronted by a challenge. There are 2 views of religious thought here in our text from Luke chapter 20. One says that God is in complete control. It's a dilemma that wasn't settled back then and still is an issue for us today.